Well, Carmel Cochran, everyone.
I'm embarrassed.
I don't know why you're embarrassed. You're amazing. I think we can all agree it's a wonderful, wonderful film. We have got questions from the audience. We've got questions from people on Instagram, and I've got some of my own for you as well. So, Carmel, tell us about how did you become attached to One Love?
So it happened in 2021, I think. It took nearly 3 years to cast the film. An agent who I have spoken to for years recommended me to Paramount, their casting department. I think they called a couple of agents and said, oh, who do you like? And then I found myself on a Zoom with the director, and they definitely thought I was Jamaican, and I was kind of like, no, I'm Dominican, half Dominican, but was also like, I want a job, so I'll be whatever you want me to be. Yeah, we did, and so we did a Zoom, and started off with some of the casting. We started off trying to find Bob Marley, and I think we did that for about a year.
And so how do you find a Bob Marley?
You look everywhere. I had the most amazing time with Kareen, who did all the casting in Jamaica. We did everything. We looked at musicians, actors, dancers, just anyone, everyone. I mean, if you're doing a biopic, at least there's a physical person that they have to look like. So it's not, in some ways, it's not as hard as some other scripts where it could be anyone. There are physical parameters. But it's surprising quite a few actors don't want to do biopics. So
I can kind of imagine that. Imagine the weight of the world being on you and all of the fan base watching with, through the magnifying glass.
And the family.
And the family. So, yeah, how involved were Bob's estate in this film?
Really involved. And actually it was lovely. I think one of the best moments in my career was going out to Jamaica for a set visit. And I'm pretty, redundant on set because I don't have a job. And so you're just kind of looking at the goats, and they were setting fire to a field. And then at one point I got hungry, and there's a whole craft services, and I went to go and get a snack, and they were like, no, those are for Ziggy Marley's kids. But I mean, it was a whole tray of stuff. So not mine, not my snacks, but they were ever present, and it was really, really great. You'd kind of email Sedella, and it's so surreal. I grew up listening to Bob Marley, and to be engaging with them was insane.
Did they have any say in the casting?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought so.
Yes. Yeah, and also, they lived it. They knew exactly. It'd be everything. You'd send off. So what I think people might not realise is that the decision doesn't stop with me. I could sit there and say, oh, I think it should be this person. But ultimately, we get the tapes, we'll forward them to production, to the director, and then once the director says yes, they then go to studio, and then from the studio, they'd go to the family. And so sometimes you'd be like, yes, we've nailed it. Spent 6 months trying to find this kid to look exactly like Ziggy, and Ziggy would come back and be like, my kid doesn't look like me. And you're like, oh, back to the drawing board, back to trying to find.
I mean, looks is one element of appearances, but then you've also got a sound to find.
And they have to be able to act. Who knew?
And
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
And with the accent, I think what's amazing about the film is the authenticity and an absolute insistence that we're going there with the accent.
And
we're
not subtitling.
Exactly. So how is it auditioning actors who are sometimes a bit liberal with the truth about their accent and what they can do?
There was a lot of us going to the agent, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you positive? Because it's going to be really embarrassing if they come in and they can't. And the agent would be like, absolutely. And then, yeah. Questionable.
Yeah.
Patois that sounded Irish. Patois that sounded Australian. Patois that sounded, yeah.
Did the Spotlight accent filters come in useful?
Yep, we use that. So that's pretty much how we started, because I think at the beginning we weren't allowed to say what we were doing. And so we would just form these shortlists by clicking on, who's proficient, and then also using the music filters, so who could play the drums, who could play the guitar, who could sing. But we also found that people are liberal with those too.
That's why we need auditions in the room.
And actually we did. So all of our auditions were in person. I think we did lots of self-tapes in the first round, but then we did director meetings.
And I think that the scale of the film is apparent as well. It's a huge cast.
76, I think.
Wow.
If I remember correctly. We'd be like checking them down each day.
And the locations as well. I think the film films across different continents and what was the casting process like in different territories? And
it was just great. We had kind of this one master doc. It filmed here and Jamaica, so it wasn't. There's a few cheats of Germany and and it was fine. We just color coordinated. It was just blue if it was in the UK and green if it was in Jamaica, and it worked. I think the only tricky thing was getting the Jamaican actors that Corinne cast into the UK. They needed a 6-week visa period, and there was a moment where one thing that I can talk about, which was hilarious, we had a call my agent moment. So I don't know if you've seen it, where that episode where an agent hires an actor out for the day, but they're on 2 things. And you think, that would never happen. Definitely happened to us. And there was a motorbike involved in getting one actor from one series that they were doing to our set.
I think that's the dream, though, isn't it?
For the actor.
Yeah.
It was suddenly when I was going back through my emails with production, and they were like, well, you didn't tell us. And I was like, refer to my email where I said, this is now your problem.
Just talking about Lashana as well. So what was her journey to Rita?
She auditioned.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. And she auditioned with Kingsley. They did chemistry, and I remember it vividly. I think I wasn't there for Lashana. I think it was during the summer, and I was on holiday with my kids, but we were all watching through Zoom. And Trisha at Paramount, who's like our casting exec, who's the most amazing, wonderful woman, was there, and it was just magnetic. It was, watching the magic happen.
And I thought James Norton was an inspired choice. I know he does look like Chris.
Yeah, which is weird because at the premiere, Chris was there, and I didn't really recognise him. But I don't know if he looks like him or if he's just such a good actor that he really carries it. He was just great.
The latter, yeah.
Yeah. No, we kind of just went with whoever was the best. There wasn't like a quota of this many people needed. Oh, maybe there were a certain amount of flights that were capped. But no, I think ultimately when you've been looking for 3 years, it really did end up just being whoever was right for the role. Well, so Kingsley is from Barbados, I think. Sorry to kill every illusion. And yeah, there were so many conversations. And I'm Dominican, and it was hard, and we knew that there was going to be a certain amount of backlash, but ultimately we tried. And he was the best person. No, we did street casting, Notting Hill Carnival. Oh, yeah, we were out there. Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely authentic. So what Corinne did brilliantly, and I realised when I went to Jamaica, we went to the Bob Marley estate, and the guy who does the I can't remember his name now, sadly, who does that speech at the top of the hill, he was there selling records at the Bob Marley estate. That's where they found him, and there are all these people and all these great faces, and I think it was that more the Jamaican. That wasn't something I did, but that really gave it the authenticity.
I think even though the band felt authentic as well.
But a lot of the band are like the sons of the people that they were playing or family members. We really. I think there was only one actor that couldn't play. The rest are actual performers and musicians. So, like Sheldon, I think it was just the way that it was filmed in the end. It was not so much about that, but yeah, I think it was. Well, he's probably the yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but all the rest, those were their instruments, and that's what they did. It was a massive, massive search, and in the end, Tosin, like he was just such a good actor that it was that one part, and actually that was one of the trickiest parts. We were still going, and he's not Caribbean; he's African.
Yeah, I know exactly.
But we had it was really interesting because we had a conversation about that almost a couple of weeks into it, where you then start to think, okay, well, I mean, depending on what you think, but history, you know, most of us came from Ghana, and so then we just decided that we weren't going to be totally restrictive when films like this come few and far between, and actually the opportunity should be there. It was an actor actually who said to me, he was Nigerian, and he said, well, come on, you know, the thing is that Michael Fassbender, and I'm just using him as an example, bless his heart, can play Irish, Australian, whatever, but when it comes to us, you can only play, like, if you're, you know, I'm half Indian and half Dominican, so in theory I should only be able to play half, or possibly Indian, and, you know, it seems a lot more restrictive when you're not. So we had those conversations, which...
And it was before the days of our new ethnicity and heritage section on Spotlight. So I guess it was probably a little bit more vague.
Yeah, really vague.
Yeah.
Really, really vague. And especially actually when we had to find Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie, that casting was impossible because you're looking for an Eritrean, you know, and I don't think you had that on your little...
It will be on the hidden on the ethnicity and heritage filter.
It's useful, yeah. No. So I don't think anyone expected it to take that long. But you're kind of, as a casting director, I think I was employed for like 8 weeks to do the Bob search, and then that 8 weeks became something else, and then became something else, and then all of a sudden I'm on it for 3 years and more grey hair. Yeah, always. Like, I get that even if I'm casting a commercial, it's just instinctive. You know, you get a lot of people who say, oh, what could I do differently and what could I do better? And actually, it's not necessarily that you could do anything better. It's just, you feel it when you feel it. And yeah, we had those moments all the time, like Tosin and Umi, who played Cindy Breakspear. When she came in, I mean, I think that's the best piece of casting I've ever done in my life because they look exactly carbon copy.
Totally.
So I think the most challenging part, which I didn't end up doing it, went back to Corinne in Jamaica, was young Bob, because he really had to have the accent and he really had to look like him. Not like the 18-year-old Bob, but like the 6-year-old Bob. We saw his nephews, his cousins, his grandkids. Like, there was not a child in Jamaica that we did not see for that part. And here as well, because some of his family are here, and Miami, and, you know, we really, that was the hardest part. And also they had to have really specific hair. I mean, I think the best bit of casting is the boy who plays young Bob when he's 18, and Trisha and Corinne had gone to a club in Jamaica and he was performing that night, and that's how they found him.
One love aside for a second, what's a typical audition like with Carmel Cochran?
Exactly like this. It will be me talking absolute nonsense, and then I'll be like, okay, so then do you audition now? I think the thing that I really tried to impress upon everyone is that I can't act. believe it or not. I can't direct. I don't know anything about directing or acting. I just don't. All I can do is give you my instinct, which may or may not be right if I don't have the director with me. But everyone's there because we want to see them. It's like not a trick or a trap.
Which is the alchemy of a casting director, isn't it? It's that
You'd think
instinct.
so.
That's the magic dust.
And we like doing things in person. We really do. Because I think I was with the director this morning and I was saying what you want to be able to talk about is how tall someone is or how they carry themselves or, oh, I know that person's really shy and they're never going to do a good audition. But I go to set as well and I didn't go to the edit on Bob Marley, but I go to the edits of other things and you can see. Because a lot of the time, like with some of these guys, and even in some of the other films that I do, if you've got like these big Hollywood actors, I can't really give an opinion if I haven't seen them and they're not going to audition. So I like to go to set and feel the vibe. Also, I just like to go to set because usually it's not in the UK and I get to have a holiday. I'm not a martyr.
You like the snacks?
I like the snacks. I like the snacks and I like the sun. No, I think that maybe it was a year of doing searches for kids, but they didn't really know what they were auditioning for. You kind of didn't really tell anyone. And then maybe the actual kind of audition process once... Oh, because also 2 years of that, the film wasn't greenlit, so it wasn't actually necessarily going ahead. It was like, oh, maybe. And then in the year, I guess once we started doing all the other parts, yeah, I'd say people waited at least 8 months, 8 months. And you'd be sat there, and sometimes, especially with this, more so this than on some of the other things that I'd watched, and you'd put these people forward, and the director maybe says no, but then things change, and then you put the same people back again, and then that person is now a yes. And so you never want to say no at the time, because then they come back, and you don't want people to know that at one point you were a no. But it's horrible. That's the worst part. Mm-hmm. Not really. I'd say that more and more. I mean, I just did a film and we were on it for 9 or 10 months before the director started to make decisions. So yeah, no, it is actually. It's not uncommon. I think it depends on the director and their process. And it's hard to sometimes know their process when you're auditioning. You know, if it was up to me, you could cast it in 2 weeks and be done.
And not only that, you've got plenty of other things to be getting on with. You've got, your office, Carmel's one of the busiest casting directors, always putting out breakdowns on Spotlight. How do you manage that? So you've got kind of spinning plates, different genres, commercials, and the background.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Lots of therapy. Because I think I've just got a mind, and I don't want to give it a label because, people called it all different sorts of things. I've just got a mind that can do lots of things at once. And it doesn't work for everyone, but that's just how and actually, if I've got nothing to do, like at the moment where I'm so lazy, I don't do anything. It's like I need to be on one or the other, and I can't really find a chill place in between. And I've got kids, so I work my day, and then I stop, and then I start again in the evenings and do my film stuff. But yeah,
it's amazing. You are amazing.
But I've got to, like, I can remember actors, other than in the wild. Well, sometimes I'm like,
And does that help you move actors about?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. But also, like, you talk about waiting 6 or 8 months, but sometimes we'll cross over and you'll get 3 auditions because we will have seen you for one thing, and whilst that's waiting, I'm like, oh yeah, but that person's great. Let's see them for da-da-da-da-da. And so all of a sudden there'll be a flurry. 150% sound woo because like I feel like I'm a witch and nobody listens to me and nobody believes me. I think it's, for me, a lot is spiritual, and I find it really difficult to separate that from. I find actually TV casting really difficult because it's less. It's less thought and feeling sometimes, and more, especially in the UK. Oh, this person, you know. But I think a lot of it is thought and feeling, and a lot of it, especially with my career, and it could be completely different. Like when we cast Anya Taylor-Joy in The Witch, she was the second person that we saw that day, and we'd seen her for something else, and she didn't get it. And 6 months later, she was cast, but she was the second person, and I knew it was her. I knew it was her from the beginning. But sometimes you have to indulge everyone else's.
I wonder what AI would have said. If you put it into a machine and your spirit,
this is what I find really, really interesting, because in the advent of self-tape and all of this stuff, I'm just like, AI can't do this and be me and do all the silly humour. And that's why I really like the personal and knowing people, because you could AI cast a film easily. I mean, you could probably do it now and type in. And I actually think there's something where you can put a script in and it tells you. But what they're not going to know is all the thoughts of it. You're just not going to get magic. You'll get a perfectly fine cast, I'm sure, but you're not going to get something special, I think. And when you do, I'll be replaced.
Yeah, and I think it's also about the relationship management, isn't it?
Yeah,
With the
agents. And it's so. I think that's what people don't realise is all the back peddling that goes in and speaking to the agents. And the reason that I got Bob Marley was because an agent had put me forward. Now, if I had never spoken to that agent, met that agent, gone to the theatre with that agent, had lunch with that agent, they would never have put my name forward. But it's 20 years you've harvested into a relationship.
And I think that also goes to show that about how your personal perception is seen in the industry. Being a nice person, approachable, gets you recommended and gets you the gigs.
Yeah, but I guess if I'd just been emailing with that agent, they wouldn't have known. I mean, I guess the agent knew. I don't know if the agent would have put forward someone who was white, but I just don't know. But maybe because she knew that. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a lot of personal connection. With Bob Marley, what we were doing was, if the director liked you, we would do this thing where, and it's, a silly term, but we'd pin those people. So we'd say, there's interest. These are the dates that we have. Check back in with us, we'll check back in with you. And so the agent is sat there going, okay, well, I'm sending them up for this audition, this audition, this audition. These dates clash. And then we'd check in. And she'd say, have you got any news? Or he'd say, you got any news? I'd say, no. Have you got any news on that job? No. And then you just kind of keep it rolling. You just can't. You've just got to do whatever feels good. In the same way that I will, there's a job at the moment that I've been on for 2 years, and it might come back again, but I might not be available. That's just going to be the way it crumbles, I think. When everyone's trying to move things forward, I think it's just knowing that everyone's on your side, trying to make things happen, trying to make jobs happen. I don't think anyone's intentionally sat there going, let's just park this for 6 months and not tell anyone, and that person's growing their hair and growing their beard and growing, yeah. But it does happen. It definitely does. And that happens all the time, all the time. Even when you say, and as it's getting closer, I mean, we had it on a film 2 years ago, a year ago, a huge film. And we kept saying to this agent, we really like your actor, director's really interested. But we couldn't get that actor through the studio because they wanted a big name. And eventually when the studio said yes, he wasn't available. We were like, what? And it was bad. But what can you do? This is the other thing. It's like, and very much the way that we work in the office, it's everyone's just human and just move on. If you can't have that person, you need to work out a solution and can't be angry with. No.
Well, there was an actor who was
No, but they wouldn't have wanted to. They just had to, because otherwise, no. Productions, and that goes back to personal connection. So that took a producer who knew the producer who knew the producer. No production ever wants to share, because it's just, you just want your thing. I mean, it would make my life easier. And I know that there are some casting directors, if you're not available for 2 days, they just have you as totally not available, because you just don't want the headache of having to go. Ooh, but whereas we kind of work of like, someone else's problem. Let's get everyone to get as many jobs as they can and just try and work it out. And it's not easy. I mean, I've had whole holidays ruined trying to sort people's dates out. I totally didn't. I didn't even know it was a job. I got into it completely by accident. Again, what's meant for you. My cousin knew a director. The director asked me to go and do some street casting, paid me £50. I was 17. And I went and he said, my sister works in casting, you'd be really good. And I went and worked there for 3 years, didn't go to uni. Kind of thought, oh, well, this is kind of cool. Didn't go to uni and then just stayed doing it. And I asked myself every single day what else I'd be doing. That I was cheap. No, he did. There was nothing about me. There was nothing special about me. There was nothing. He was just like, well, she's poor. Could do with 50. I mean, he paid me £50. I still remember it. Every single part. I do all the creative. I don't do any admin. So I've got I do 50. No, I do so they type up the breakdowns, I approve them. Every single person that is picked for a commercial, a music video, a short film, a film. So when do you sleep? I sleep well. I go to bed at like 9 o'clock. I just am a productive person. It's not, and I think because I've been doing it for 20 years, I know people. So it's a, but we also take risks. It's not like a tick box exercise. I just, so for example, upstairs, I was just yesing people for a Bailey's commercial. There were 362 submissions, and you just go through them and you take them, and then that's my bit done.
How many do you recall from that 300?
Oh, it depends on how much the agency want to pay, but normally about 20. Oh, no, we wouldn't see 360 people. You'd see like 40, and then you'd recall 10.
But we've spoken about this before, and your office are really good at looking at every single submission.
Every single one.
It's amazing.
Because I once heard something that someone said, I'm not going to name names, and said that if your surname was with a Z. And I was like, sorry.
It's a myth out there. Yeah, there's a rumour going around that if you're alphabetically towards the end of the alphabet, you're less likely to be seen. But
yeah, no,
not true.
Every single page, and that's why I do the creative and I don't do any admin. You're never going to find me doing a Google Doc. Well, sometimes I do, but only if something's gone wrong. Oh God, I can't remember what songs are in it. I mean, yes, redemption song, but so many different reasons. But that was at my uncle's funeral, and I went to the premiere, and I cried, and everyone was like, "Oh, you did a really good," and I was like, "That's not why I'm crying. I'm crying because the song's really emotional." I think it's such a special interaction. I would say we do, and someone will have to fact check me, 70% of our stuff is in person. Yeah, we do. And actually, we did a commercial the other day where we say it's in person for first rounds, but if you want to self-tape, self-tape. And it was a 50-50 split. And we give it to the actor to choose. I think there's different horses for different courses. A lot of actors like self-tape because they get to do it as many times as they want. I've got a real problem with that because I think if you've done it 100 times to get to where you're at, that's a problem because you're not going to have 100 chances on set, especially for some smaller parts.
That's a really good point, actually.
Well, that's why there are so many reshoots. That's why so much is being reshot, because you've not worked with that person. There's no true test of their ability. Whereas, actually, I think if you're in the room, you know, someone can just do it or they can't. I think there's just more transparency in the room. I think it's hard. I live in Northamptonshire. I very rarely go to sessions anymore because it just costs me £150 a day. But there's good things and bad things in both. But I much prefer in person and working with people. And we've still got our studio, so we've still got our space downstairs. But they are it's expensive. I guess now we say to people, oh, well, this is an expense. But for years, I mean, they weren't paid by production. It was like your room and you had to pay for it and just swallowed up in your costs. But we've got lots of people in here have been to our gorgeous pink room downstairs. But it's,
I think the good news is at Spotlight that the studios are, we've noticed
Not
them
been yet.
go, no, we need to get you in. They're getting busier and busier, and it's like it used to be, and a real hub again. But yeah, post-COVID, it was kind of, it had been slashed from everyone's budget, so we don't need to have a
but
day
also
in the room.
I think, you know, when I meet actors and I'll say, you know, what have you been working on? And they'll say whatever it is. And I said, oh, who cast it? And very rarely can they tell you. And it's because of self-tape. They don't have that face-to-face. They don't know.
Just like question for me, what's coming up in 2025, and also, do you reckon you'll be up for an Oscar anytime soon? Because because casting directors will be up for the Oscars soon, and this is really exciting. And I think this is where your media training will come in useful, because
This is why I will never be up for an Oscar, to tell the truth. No, I've not won a BIFA or a BAFTA. So, Oscar, I mean, maybe. I don't
it
know.
will happen. It will happen. But 2025, so you've just, the new film, the horror film, which has escaped me,
Nosferatu.
Yep. How is that looking? Is it well received?
Yeah, it seems to be so far. Seems to be good so far. Out, I think, New Year's Day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Christmas
Okay.
Eve in the US. Not that I'm... I don't know. I think there's a whole world of other casting directors who probably will get something before I do, but it's fine. Got my whole life.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
We cross over a lot. So if someone comes in for a commercial, I think historically everyone always thought, oh, if you do commercials, you're never going to get seen for a film. Or I just don't. Nobody watches TV, so it's like commercials to me are the best way to make some money to tide you over those 6 to 8 months while you're waiting for us to. I just think they're great. We see so many people. I think it's the quantity is completely different. So for a commercial, you'll see. God, sometimes I can see 100 people in a day. It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. No, there's nothing. It's just you're either right for it or you're not. You can practice your craft and you can do all of these things. And I think just keep watching things, that's all. And actually reading. I don't watch that much, but I read a lot. And so you get a real sense of character, which I think always helps.
I think it shows the importance of commercial auditions, though. You know, so
It's
I think
practice.
there was probably a time when actors thought, I'm not going to go to that commercial. But actually, you could be auditioning for Carmel's commercial and then end up in a feature film. So
Yeah, I think like the guy that played Mick Jagger was someone who was suggested through a commercial agency.
wow, amazing.
Model agency, yeah.
We are unfortunately at time, so I just want to say thank you all for your questions. Thanks for coming. A big round of applause for Carmel.
Thank you.